Hey there, what's up? Welcome to the video. My name is Azodi, and in this tutorial I'm just going to show you a few quick tips on how to wrap up your girl crush track. The tips that I'm going to share in this video will work for most contemporary genres, and make sure you check out the previous tutorials in this series, as this video by itself will not make any sense. I haven't seen many tutorials on how to balance a mix from the start, and you will find once this process is done, you will be in a good spot with a fairly decent mix. I like to zero the entire desk, as you can see, all plugins off, all strip off. I always have a couple of reference mixes just to guide me, especially when you lose your calibration very quickly. Your ears get very used to what it's hearing, so it's always good to have a reference mix just to kind of guide you. So I generally like to start this process with the core fundamental elements that take up the most headroom. So in this case, it's generally going to be the kick and the 808. Cool, so hitting around -10 so far, which is good. We want our mix to be hitting around -6 dB. Let's do the bass. With balancing the kick and 808 is you want the kick to feel like it's just sitting in front of the 808. And there's a very narrow sweet spot, but it's almost as if they feel like they just end up locking together at a certain balance. Let's bring in the snare now, and we want it to feel like it's just sitting on the kick. Generally with this, I'm going heavily off my own feeling and intuition, and the question I ask myself is this making me want to nod? Can I feel my body sort of shifting when the snare gets brought in? And that's usually a good indicator. How does your body feel? How do you want to move when you start introducing these elements? Now I would gradually bring in the hats to increase the tallness of the mix and also to enhance that groove as well. So generally I'll take my headphones off and listen through my monitors, which are sitting just behind the camera, and maybe listen on some real cheap, tinny speakers, because that's going to bring up some stuff as well. And the reason we do this is it gives us a good balance. Everyone is going to be consuming your music with different setups and speakers, so do the best that you can with the current setup that you have. And let's gradually bring in the hook, which is the other important element. So my thinking with the hook is I want it to feel like it's part of the mix, part of the ecosystem, but because the way that this hook is written, it's going to be around the same range as the lead vocal. So with that in mind, as always, lead vocal is the most important element when it comes to general pop music. So I've got it balanced to a point where I like it, but then what I'm going to do is actually reduce it in volume so it's just a little bit quieter, because we don't want it to interfere with the lead vocal, okay? And subtly bring in the elements that I feel aren't as crucial as these core fundamental ones. Now this of course varies from mix to mix, person to person, setup to setup, but this is the way I do it. Okay, so I gradually introduced everything, still nothing going on the inserts, nothing on the strip or EQs here. So let's just have a listen with just a raw balance of levels for the A chorus. Alright, cool. So last thing I like to do is if we just type in SPAT, stereo enhancer. Cool, and then we're just going to check the mix in mono, so everything's kind of clear in that front. And it should make some stuff apparent. And don't forget, if you've got a reference mix in the background, always just keep checking against that, A/Bing everything very quickly, and then you can just get a well-rounded sort of view and opinion of the mix that you've just done. Not bad for a starting point for your mix, right? Certain cleaner 808s will struggle to be heard on certain speakers such as iPhones or laptops, and we as the producer or mix engineer need to cater for that. One quick way around that is to simply saturate the 808 layer. Now, as you can see, there is a lot going on in the low bass / sub area, but even though you can see that there's a lot of sub energy, it's actually quite hard to hear, but it's still present. So I don't want to go too in depth with how saturation and harmonic distortion works, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to turn up this band here, and if you look at the top end of this band, it's going to raise in volume along with the tape saturation, but the sub energy is going to remain the same. And you can see it's kind of brought up the harmonic distortion and color up here, and this is off. Now this works, real quick win, but for me, I prefer to have a lot more control over each of the layers and how much I'm going to distort / saturate a layer and how I treat it. So what we can do is duplicate the MIDI layer and treat it as a separate layer from the core 808. So all you have to do is right click the channel and duplicate it. Then what you can do is you can mix up the 808 signal, maybe use the same one or try a different preset. Dive in, select it, and then all I've done is taken the entire channel and bumped it up 1 octave. So what we want to do is pull up Studio EQ. Now the way I've treated this is to treat it more like a low mid layer. So we kind of want to enhance the low mid layer frequencies, which are generally going to be 2 to 250 up to maybe 400 or 500. And what I've done is I've cut off everything up to about, let's say about 140, because those are generally the key fundamental bass frequencies. And because we've done exactly a mirror image of the existing bass line, that bass is going to be covering everything over here, so we don't need to worry about that. Okay, what we do need to worry about is bumping and enhancing around this part, and then cut off a bunch of the highs, maybe, well, that's a bit aggressive, maybe more like to about here. So that way we're kind of really focusing on these frequencies, and these are the frequencies that are going to be much more easier to hear on the smaller, cheaper speakers like the iPhones and the laptops. Cool, so all we need to do is focus on the frequencies that we've enhanced, but kind of enhance the saturation only around this area. So I use the Quadrafuzz, which comes with Cubase, but there are a lot of saturation or distortion plugins that you can use to, your preference. So let's go. So that mixed down a bit. And you can see we're enhancing all of this around here. So with it on and with it off. Cool, so what we'll do is we'll gradually feed in this low mid signal, this mirror image of the bass, to our taste. So let me just put that on so I can hear. Cool. Cool, and then we'll do it to the rest of the mix. So I'm going to do a comparison. Now listen out to the bass without the low mid signal, the saturated low mid signal, and then listen to it when it's on, okay? And And this will help create the perception of clarity of the 808 on smaller speakers such as iPhones or laptops. So choosing the right kick sample to start with is important. And sample selection is a crucial tool to develop with your ear and judgment. So you want to choose samples generally that are going to help convey the emotion that you are trying to portray in the song. Yet you want to choose samples that sound current and up to date, and if you want to push it really far, choosing samples that are very innovative and haven't been heard before in a pop song. So those are the sort of thoughts I have when I'm going through kick samples. Now, another tip is how to pair your kick with an 808, and there's a bit of a strategy behind this as well. So for this heavy distorted type of kick, I would generally implement it into a track that is kind of swaggy, hype, attitude, and gritty. And I'm most likely going to go for a shorter, punchier, grittier 808 preset or sample. Maybe for this one, I'm going to use the kick sample for trap songs or maybe a smoother R&B track with a longer, sustained, cleaner 808 sound. Probably with this kick sample, I'm going to go for something that's a bit more funkier or potentially EDM based. And regarding the bass line, maybe something that moves a bit quicker, maybe a bit more groovy or funkier. Now this lesson is generally trickier to teach as it comes with practice, skill, and developing your own ear and judgment, and a taste, of course, is a big part of this as well. I would also recommend listening to the most up-to-date K-pop tracks just so you can hear what the pro guys and girls are doing at the top of their game. So there you have it, a few tips on how to wrap up your Girl Crush song. And this is the final video of how to write K-pop, the Girl Crush series. If you are a singer who is inspired by that K-pop sound and like to infuse it into your own solo music, get in touch via the website link below and we can work something out. Thanks so much for watching this video and the Girl Crush series. I hope you learned something cool and you can implement a few of these tips and techniques into your own productions. If you want more tutorials like this one, make sure you hit the subscribe button to Cubase's YouTube channel. Thanks so much, and I'll catch you again soon. God.